they have established legal entities on their country. We call Ahdo Indonesia and Ahdo Vietnam. Countries with a light green check means they are in the process of establishing the legal setup. You see the side of the circle represent the population size of each country. Beside the head office and national chapters, Ahdo has a liaison officer to ASEAN, an executive director, board of advisor, and committee leader. The organizational structure of Ahdo is decentralized. This is because the scope and the diversity of human development across the region requires sensitivities to the needs and context, as well as resources on the ground. One size does not fit all when it comes to ASEAN. The chair of Ahdo rotates annually through each member countries, and the organization has office in Jakarta, delegates initiatives and operational activities to other countries on the model of ASEAN Secretariat. And you can see that the first chair of the Ahdo is a holding by Indonesia, then rotate to Vietnam, and the coming we will rotate to Malaysia. For the membership, I shared a little bit of Ahdo have two types of membership: organization and individual. Organizations that support Ahdo activities and benefit from the service can become Ahdo organization members. These may be companies, governments, international institutions, donors, or other CSO, civil society organizations. Individual membership are for human development professionals working in across institutional and industry sectors. They can be HR professionals, consultants, trainers, educators, professionals in governments, business leader, a student. Ahdo community is not limited to the region of Southeast Asia. We are linked to several international organizations and growing number of human development professionals outside Southeast Asia, enroll in our certification courses that I can share later, and collaborate on projects. So why human development is central to ASEAN context? Human development, as defined by Ahdo, spans two of the three ASEAN pillars. The ASEAN social cultural community pillar, where human rights, education, and people-centered regional have their place. But human development is also a core purpose of ASEAN economic community pillar, where humans are a purpose and not just mean a profit. Ahdo advocates for mainstream use of term human development in organizations and institutions concerned with people at work. So we believe that the advancement in the future will be human development, replacing such name as human resources, human capital, or manpower. As to be sustainable, we are working on the business model for Ahdo. To get the Ahdo started, the founders had worked with volunteers who generously donated time and expertise to create the entity in different ASEAN countries, to work on publication, to organize conferences, or to facilitate trainings. 3 years into the Ahdo development, we have identified the following activities to make Ahdo sustainable as an organization. First, we introduce memberships. Second, we have a certification, training, and educational programs. We will invite sponsorships. We work on funded research and projects. We make events, conference, and publications. Collaboration. Ahdo has collaborated with several directorates in the ASEAN Secretariat and ASEAN accredited entities, right? And you can see in the slide that we have worked with many ASEAN entities, such as ASEAN Community Affairs, ASEAN Human Development ASEAN Foundation, ASEAN University Network, ASEAN Business Advisory Council, ASEAN Youth Organization, and ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. With this, we see that we have a diverse network with the ASEAN entity, would help us to expand more and promote human development. For ASEAN, we building a sustainable workforce, mean a diverse and inclusive workforce that continue to develop social stakeholders as well achieve economic goals. Human development links strongly to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and to ESG requirement for companies. For Ahdo, we define human development at work linked to goal number 1, goal number 3, goal number 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 12, 16, 17. It very much they align with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. An important part of Ahdo mission is thought leadership in human development in ASEAN. So Ahdo has published books with Macro Hill in the Human Development at Work series and white papers on human development issues in ASEAN. So you can see these a number of publications that has been published by Ahdo. The links to the publications are on the Ahdo website. You can find it. Now, I would like to share the interesting, you can say that works that Ahdo have introduced last year. There is the certification of human development professionals. In July 2021, Ahdo created the first professional certification worldwide for human development practitioners. Ahdo also certifies professionals outside the ASEAN region. The certification content is based on ASEAN declarations and goals, as well as the United Nations knowledge base in human rights, the UNDP, the SDG, and the ILO. The programs also shares practical knowledge and develop the ASEAN network of professionals. The program is a 5-month process that concludes with an individual certification, interview, and a team action learning projects presentation. So far, 4 cohorts with 15 to 20 participants each have been certified or are in the process of certification. Cohort 5 is scheduled to start in early 2023. In this slide, I will share with you the 2 projects related to the progress of human development initiative in the region. First is about the master degree in human development at University of Malaya in partnership with the ASEAN University Network. This is the first master degree in human development in the ASEAN region, providing the opportunity for graduates to contribute to a key priorities for regional development. And Ahdo founder Bob Albury, who I think many of you know, is the academic advisor to this program. The intended launch date is September next year. Second, that is the ASEAN cross-border internship. This is the partnership between Ahdo and the Malaysian Talent Corp organization, building on their success in Malaysia with My ASEAN internships for incoming and outgoing students. This initiative builds on the white paper in the ASEAN internship imperative published in 2021 by Ahdo, written by Ahdo in partnership with the ASEAN Foundation. The ASEAN cross-border internship initiative will begin in 2023 for students in Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Here is some information about the ICAR dialogues in ethics. So what is ICAR? ICAR stands for Ethics, Cultural, and Advisory for ASEAN region. The idea of establishing a space for dialogue in ethics came out of exchange in 2020 among Ahdo and the Foundation of International Human Rights Reporting Standard, FIHRST, and the ASEAN University Network, AUN. And the three organizations has established ECAR, and we starting to introduce dialogues on ethics. The purpose of ECAR is to identify and to discuss ethical issues that are sufficient to be addressed at the level of ASEAN regional community. The largest audience is university students, and some professors have even assigned this webinar in their ethics courses, requiring certificate of attendance. So far, we have organized 7 ECAR dialogues, which have achieved registration of over 1,000 participants. We have also been able to engage with other ASEAN entities to engage in public dialogue on important ethical issues for ASEAN. You see, there is a very interesting topic in the last 7 dialogue that has been introduced. Besides that, in the last 2 years, Ahdo has been invited to participate to share about Ahdo and human development related topics in many webinars and events. And I just share with you like some of these events that Ahdo participated or co-host. Right? Okay, and many more, but I cannot put on here. Okay. So one of the next milestones of ASEAN Human Development Organization is to achieve a full accreditation as an ASEAN entity. More detail and update on the road to this goal will be shared to you by Mr. U.S. Bulo, our Ahdo senior liaison to ASEAN. Thank you for listening. Budo, hand over to you.
Thank you, Phuc, and thank you for continuing sliding the slide for us. Good morning, everyone. Just to give a glimpse on you about the certifications, I joined the first cohort of the certifications, and on that certification, I experienced the way we have to calibrate, or the experience of calibrating the understanding of human development, how we move from human resources into human development. It goes beyond human resources, but still it will give impact in improving the human development index in our community, especially in our region. Next slide. And on the next slide, this is actually already presented by our colleague Phuc, that these are the names which lead the progressions of Ahdo activities in the respective countries. And thanks for the good news that today the Timor-Leste also already accepted as the part of ASEAN. So we are expecting in other countries there will be future representative that will lead the movement of Ahdo in the respective countries. So the next slide will be the last slide from us. This is to mention why there is an alignment between Ahdo and ASEAN, and this is how to put a note that yes, we are moving forward with our accreditation. Right now, we are in the conditionally accreditation status. We have already granted the permissions to use the ASEAN logo, ASEAN names, and to do our activities since 2018. And now the first one, Ahdo's mission is promoting human development in the workplace across ASEAN and bringing a balance of economic and human development to Southeast Asia. As we know that we have a very significant amount of people, we are going to be significant and playing significant roles in the world's economics. So make sure that our community is ready to embrace that will be the main agenda for Ahdo. Secondly, aiming to be the dialogue partner of ASEAN institutions for policies that improve human development at work. Yes, we are now in the changing ecosystem and also environment. So having these groups of communities, of activities, of professionals, as well as academics and some people from the NGOs, we are aiming to canalize those informations and being the dialogue partner of ASEAN institutions. And thirdly, integrating ASEAN pillars of ASEAN economic community and ASEAN socio-cultural community. It has been shown already that we already engage with those ASEAN's institutions since the start of our activities early in 2018, 2019, up to recently. And fourthly, Ahdo as a non-profit organization and granted authorization to use the name ASEAN since 2020, and we have already proven consistency in contributing to the enhancement, strengthening, and realizations of improving human development index in Southeast Asia community. To put a note on the cross-border internships, hopefully we can make this happen next year. And for those of you who are willing to be participated or discuss more, we have the breakout session. We will discuss further on that session. And lastly, ASEAN may engage with entities which support the ASEAN Charter, in particular in its purposes and principles. So this is from the ASEAN part. So just to share with you that yesterday on that this week on Thursday, we have met on with the ASEAN Secretariat. We've discussed on the progress on how we are fully accredited and being part of the ASEAN institutions. So hopefully this will be the good news, and also this will enlighten our spirit in bringing up a better Southeast Asian community and higher human development index in Southeast Asian community. So thank you. That's all from us. So I give it back to the moderator. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Fu, and thanks, Bulo, for sharing. I think we learned a lot. Thanks for the good update. I think many of us we are really very happy to hear the good news that we have the 11th member of the ASEAN state joining us. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our keynote speaker, Rodora T. Babran. She is the director of the Human Development Directorate of the ASEAN Secretariat. So Rodora, over to you.
Yeah, so Rodora will also be sharing a video first, and then she'll be here to answer any questions should you have any.
Good morning to the leaders and members of the ASEAN Youth.
Sorry. One sec, yeah.
Good morning to the leaders and members of the ASEAN Youth Development Organization, or Ahdo. Thank you for inviting me to deliver a keynote at your first regional summit for human development professionals. It is certainly an honor, and I hope I can contribute in achieving your summit's objectives. Today, I will share about the Human Capital Development Agenda in ASEAN. At the outset, let me underscore that the terms I will use here might not be in tune with the current discussions in Ahdo about human development. I therefore seek your understanding, as I have to align with the accepted terminologies in ASEAN when we discuss about human development. Let me begin by first setting the scene for Human Capital Development Agenda of ASEAN. By now, we are fully aware of the concepts of future of work, characterized by megatrends such as digitalization and rise of digital economies. There are also other equally important trends that influence the future of work, such as aging societies, increased labor migration, rapid urbanization, as well as greening of economies in response to issues of environment and climate change. ASEAN has locked its sight on the prospects of an integrated digital economy that can add $1 trillion to the estimated total region's GDP of all ASEAN states by year 2030. This is expected to bring in new and better jobs with higher incomes and the potential to usher in greater prosperity and better quality of life. This kind of opportunity is something that the region cannot afford to miss. According to the World Economic Forum, there are 125,000 new internet users coming from ASEAN every day. This increased the total internet users in the region to 440 million, where about 80% are digital consumers. The region's internet economy is projected to reach $360 billion by 2025. The region also saw the rise in employment of gig or platform workers during the pandemic. On the other hand, uncertainties on the possible 28 million jobs lost or displaced due to automation, increasing informality and decent work implications of the evolving nature of employment relationships, inadequate human capital readiness, and exacerbating pre-existing inequalities have heightened ASEAN's attention to the needed policy reforms and safeguards. We witnessed in the last 2 years how volatile our world could be and what kind of impacts are brought about by unprecedented disruptions. The COVID-19 pandemic caused a steep decline in economic activity that caused the loss of 10.6 million jobs. People living in extreme poverty rose by over 10 million between 2020 to 2021. The impacts are also observed to be uneven, where women were disproportionately suffering the brunt of lost jobs, which further magnified gender disparities as well as pressures of care work during the pandemic. On the education front, it is estimated that the learning losses among students affected by school disruption during the pandemic could cause future earning losses of up to 6.5% of the estimated combined 2020 GDP of all ASEAN member states. The level of disruptions will only increase in the years to come. Our collective actions, public, private, and people, will determine whether we will reap the benefits of the future of work or lose out. ASEAN will need to future-proof its population through innovative human capital pathways to achieve a people-centered, people-oriented ASEAN community. Such pathways can contribute to a resilient and productive population, young and old alike, women and men equally, who are able to achieve their full potential with 21st century skills and competencies fit for the future, prepared and protected against various risks and shocks throughout their lifetime, and therefore drive ASEAN's inclusive and sustainable future. This attention to the strategic role of human capital development is key to ASEAN's competitiveness and economic growth. This was emphasized by His Excellency Dato Lim Jock Hoi in his remarks during the ASEAN High-Level Meeting on Human Capital Development in September 2019, where he highlighted that building human capital and skills is the biggest challenge amid rapid technological change. He also emphasized the importance of reskilling and upskilling for workers in the transition to a knowledge economy for a sustainable future of ASEAN. The level of human capital does not only boost a country's competitiveness, but also influences labor productivity growth, albeit differently across countries. Between 1971 and 2018, which witnessed a shift in the region's industrial landscape from agriculture sector to manufacturing and services, ASEAN's economy grew steadily with an average annual growth of 3.7%, and labor productivity also increased by 2.96% on average annually. Labor quality also registered stable growth across the region, along with higher enrollments in primary education and increase in the mean years of schooling across ASEAN member states. Achieving quality education for all is therefore critically important and reaffirms the belief that education is one of the most powerful and proven vehicles for sustainable development. A shift towards a more multidimensional human capital development also began to take shape with the World Bank's Human Capital Index and subsequent adjustments to account for key planetary pressures in the UNDP's 2020 Human Development Report. This progress is observable from the HDI ranking of ASEAN member states as of 2019. 3 ASEAN member states joined the roster of very high HDI, with Singapore ranked 11th, Brunei Darussalam ranked 47th, and Malaysia ranked 62nd. 4 ASEAN member states were in the high rank, namely Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam, while the rest were in the medium rank of the index. Achievements were also made in the areas of gender equality, where among other milestones, the region nearly reached gender parity in gross enrollment in primary education between males and females. However, the COVID-19 pandemic slowed down the progress we have made with human capital development. Unprecedented disruptions were experienced by around 140 million children and adolescents in ASEAN member states, with an average of 136 days of school closures, resulting to significant learning losses. The loss of jobs and livelihood, increased poverty, and worsening of pre-existing inequalities due to the pandemic reversed the hard-earned progress over the last 2 decades. Remediation efforts are therefore critical if the region is to bounce back and secure its human capital for the future. It is also ever more important to double down efforts in ensuring inclusion and equity in the region's recovery efforts, especially for the segments of the population that are hardest hit and most vulnerable. ASEAN envisions a future-ready workforce with competencies that enable them to actively and effectively contribute to sustainable development, competitiveness, and resilience of the region. Numerous policy frameworks and initiatives were adopted and implemented by ASEAN to seize the opportunities of major shifts. Initiatives focus on enhancing skills and competencies acquisition for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, increasing access, equity, quality, and relevance of education, and adopting education systems to an increasingly digital world have been included in the 2021 to 2025 ASEAN Work Plan on Education. Similarly, initiatives to enhance internationalization of ASEAN higher education, including development and implementation of regional frameworks, such as ASEAN Qualifications Reference Framework, ASEAN Quality Assurance Framework, and enhancing intra-ASEAN student mobility also form a significant part of ASEAN education activities. On top of the above-mentioned activities, an ASEAN Declaration on Digital Transformation of Education Systems is being developed. Furthermore, an ASEAN Working Group on Higher Education Mobility, which focuses on various initiatives on the establishment of the ASEAN higher education space, has also been established. Furthermore, forward-looking human resources development as part of digital transformation is called for in the Consolidated Strategy on Fourth Industrial Revolution of ASEAN. This responds to the 2018 Regional Assessment's finding on readiness of ASEAN for 4IR. While ASEAN's digital economy is projected to be the world's 5th largest by 2025, workforce, infrastructure, and regulatory frameworks in the region are not yet well prepared for it. In the same vein, the ASEAN Digital Integration Framework and the Bandar Seri Begawan Roadmap acknowledge the importance of upskilling and reskilling the workforce in achieving the full potential of digital integration and enjoying the benefits and opportunities that come with it. Towards the vision of ASEAN as a leading digital community and economic bloc, the ASEAN Digital Master Plan 2025 underlines the measures for digital inclusion and digital skills that will boost employment and productivity. Partnership with the private sector is acknowledged in all these ASEAN outcome documents as key in taking all those measures. TVET, in-company trainings, and apprenticeships that enable learners to enhance digital skills are encouraged to be widely promoted. Sustainability is an emerging engine of growth that is reshaping the economies and societies across ASEAN and around the world. Pursuing sustainability is one of the key elements for the region's post-pandemic recovery, and much more still needs to be done before countries can meet their net zero goals. The ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework commits member states to take measures to promote transition towards green and circular economy and simultaneously inclusive digital transformation. Promotion of green skills and digital skills is planned in the ACRF. The event is also expected to play a key role in preparing learners for emerging green jobs and providing them with green skills and competencies. This pathway towards an environmentally sustainable economy is underlined in the ASEAN Declaration on promoting green jobs for equity and inclusive growth of ASEAN community. Another major shift affecting the region is population aging. No longer a trend exclusive to developed countries, all countries in ASEAN are aging rapidly, with Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, and Malaysia aging faster than the rest. With increasing old age ratios and reliance on a shrinking young workforce to finance public health costs and social pension, ASEAN needs to swiftly and carefully navigate this challenge, especially in this region where informality of economies is high. The ASEAN sectoral bodies on labor, social welfare, and health in particular are taking efforts to support the capacities of member states in addressing this issue. Lifelong learning and skills development play an important role in increasing productivity and sustaining economic development. In this regard, a regional study on old age income security in ASEAN member states was conducted in 2020 to provide feedback on the policy trends, challenges, and opportunities. At the same time, implementation of the Kuala Lumpur Declaration on Aging, empowering older persons in ASEAN, is ongoing through a regional plan of action that was adopted recently. Labor mobility has significantly contributed and will continue to boost economic growth of urban centers in ASEAN member states and the region in general. The need for migrant workers to supply needed services in certain sectors and ASEAN member states is undeniable, especially with the reopening of economies as part of post-pandemic recovery efforts. With higher value commodities, digitalization and greening of economy, as well as aging societies, the future demands for migrant workers' skills will undoubtedly evolve and need to be met. Vocational training in sending states would need to be responsive to labor market demands of both domestic and the regions. Efforts towards comparable and mutually recognized qualifications continue through the implementation of the ASEAN Qualification Reference Framework, the ASEAN Guiding Principles on Quality Assurance and Recognition of Competency Certification Systems, and Mutual Recognition of Skills Project. Migrant workers' access to Social Security during employment and upon return home is recognized as highly important. In this regard, the ASEAN Declaration on Portability of Social Security Benefits of Migrant Workers in ASEAN is expected to be adopted this year as an important step in the right direction. Social protection and security are also at the heart of boosting human capital for ASEAN's vulnerable populations. Human capital development, after all, is not only for job creation, productivity, and economic competitiveness, but it is expected to boost incomes and prosperity. Amidst the region's robust digital economy, more people generate incomes from platform work, in which decent work deficits are often found. Informal workers, including those in platform work, are still excluded in non-universal social protection schemes. Many member states are looking into ways to ensure the well-being of platform workers is protected despite their non-traditional work relations. The regional study on managing technology's implications on work, workers, and employment relations examined how policies and regulations would evolve to accommodate the region's digital transition in the world of work. Mindful of this, the ASEAN Labor Ministers' Work Program adopts a holistic approach in preparing for the future of work, which includes the aspects of digital skills development and recognition, inclusive employment, gender mainstreaming, social protection for all workers, including migrant workers, and response to emerging trends in labor relations. This brings me now to the question of how can Ahdo help? As I highlighted previously, partnerships, collaboration, and collective action will play a critical role in pursuing the human capital development agenda. In this regard, as human development practitioners, you can help through the following. You can provide lifelong learning opportunities for employees to reskill, upskill, and provide in-company training or mentoring. You can also offer apprenticeships for incoming entrants to the labor market. Engage in education and industry partnerships to inform and ensure the relevance of education curriculum to meet industry skills needs. Promote healthy and active aging in the workplace. Promote and adhere to decent work standards, including social security. Ensure occupational safety and health, including mental health support and resilience building. Promote policies on gender equality, visibility, and social inclusion. And promote good and ethical corporate governance and social responsibility. In this regard, the future of human development professionals in an evolving future of work may entail a broader scope of work beyond the traditional notion of human resource administration. There may also be an increased demand for human development professionals to play a key role in ensuring company resilience and sustained growth through human capital development efforts. And there may also be greater expectation to engage, partner with, and contribute to the attainment of global, regional, and national development agenda, such as the Sustainable Development Goals and the ASEAN Community Vision, especially for companies that operate in the region. That concludes my presentation, and thank you very much for your kind attention.
All right, thank you everyone. So that was a quick video, and now we have Rodora here in person to answer any questions as well that we have. And I can see that in the chat, there's lots of questions here. Let's start with Pete. Pete has a question for Rodora. How do you believe we should strengthen social protection in response to the influence of technology upon work opportunities, platform workers in particular?
Thank you. So perhaps we can already turn off the video sharing or the screen sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's already established that social protection is a right in ASEAN. And therefore, even platform workers, those in the informal or those who are still defined under the informal sector, including some gig workers, should have protection, should have social protections. But I think what has been established so far is that government regulations have difficulty keeping up with these new trends. You know, these developments, these changes in employment or relations are way much faster than the government can regulate or provide policies for. In that regard, what we have done in ASEAN is, first to do a stock taking, an analysis of the trends. I think some 2 years back, we have done a study on the implications of technology on employment relationships. And more recently, we are finalizing a study on, we call it an employment outlook, where we really saw the rise of technology-mediated employment or, kind of work relations. Social protection will have to be provided. There are existing good practices among some member states. We are looking into them and the possibility of sharing this example among other member states who may have to adjust their regulations and policies, especially relating to social protection. It's difficult to prescribe or even suggest a one-size-fits-all policy on social protection for all countries because the contexts are different and the systems are different as well. But what's important is that this would have to be carefully navigated, looking into the long-term sustainability of this social protection mechanism. So it's important that, one, we try to remedy the issues of decent work deficits in this kind of employment relationship. Second, there has to be adjusted or better regulations to define this evolving nature of work and how government should respond to really fulfill the rights of all workers, whether they are in gig or in the mainstream. And third, look into models that would be appropriate and sustainable in the long term. So there's no one size fits all, but that I just want to highlight, it's a right. The government has to do its part, but at the same time, we also have to advocate for workers in this kind of employment relations or technology-enabled work setup, for them to raise their voices and for them to let the governments and their companies know that they are entitled to this right, and how best they can also contribute in the process, because it's important that workers also need to contribute for their own social security as well.
Okay, I hope that answers the question, Pip. And we have two more questions.
Yeah.
So
Daniel.
one question from Daniel regarding promotion of green jobs in ASEAN. How will this transition be encouraged and incentivized in the private sector, and what will the skills development strategy contain?
Okay, we have in ASEAN, we have had this kind of discussion some years back, even before the pandemic. There was a declaration, as mentioned earlier in my presentation, about promoting green skills for the transition to green economies. At the moment, we are coordinating with the lead country on this, Malaysia, to plan the concrete steps in implementing this declaration, and that would include strategies in dealing with the private sector and all other stakeholders involved in the process. So what we have also done is to mainstream this concern not only in the labor sector, but all other related sectors as well, like in education and the economic sectors. I think in terms of incentivizing it, particularly through finance, there's a recent development in ASEAN where the economic ministers have been pushing for circular economy and green financing. They even came up with this green taxonomy so that the member states will have a common definition when it comes to green financing or sustainable financing. It will be able to attract and even incentivize later on those who will be willing to invest in green-related businesses or investments.
Okay, so we have one more question. So maybe we just like Rodora to actually quickly just answer this from Nadia. How can ASEAN assist in ensuring that the region can be more borderless? I think that is a very key word, more borderless, and that we can accelerate the cross-development of talent, as we have a huge opportunity with booming economies and a big base of population. We can be the next EU and do it even better, as there is hunger in the region to progress at a much faster rate.
Yes, it's very common that ASEAN gets compared to the EU, but perhaps it would be a good opportunity to highlight that, you're like comparing different fruits in here. You cannot really compare ASEAN with the EU. First, ASEAN doesn't have a supranational body. The ASEAN member states do not give up any of their sovereignty to any supranational body, unlike the EU does through the European Commission. That said, what ASEAN does is try to harmonize existing frameworks and policies, but still based on their own national context and policies. Member states usually agree on what would be common aspirations for the region, especially in terms of mobility of skills and labor, and then try to work out areas of compatibility or comparability, for example, in terms of mutual recognition arrangements for key professional sectors and skills sectors as well. We're also working hard to address the barriers to freer mobility of persons or skills in the region. We have a lot of issues still when it comes to visa. arrangements that is handled by another sector outside of our pillar. So this requires and calls for greater cross-sectoral collaboration within the ASEAN itself. So what I would say is this been a long-standing initiative and continues to be a work in progress. But on our part, at least for the sectors under the social-cultural community, we do our best to enhance the mobility of students and later on faculty as well through partnerships with different dialogue partners that provides that works on harmonizing existing frameworks on education, credit transfer system, and even providing support for scholarships. So that's what we do from our end. In the labor side, we also have a project on mutual recognition of skills. And then since it is a whole spectrum of work, we really have to work with the other sectors and other pillars within ASEAN to address the other barriers to freer movement of people and talents.
All right. And I think, okay, let's take one more last question. And then after that, we're going to wrap up. Okay. And of course, Rodora, if you see any other questions in the chat, it would be great if you can just type it or answer it in the chat. Okay. So there's a question from Yvonne. Can you comment on the recent ASEAN Summit Cambodia and the key theme on peaceful solution in Myanmar?
Okay, I suppose this is not just one question, but can be answered in two ways. One is the recent summit in Cambodia, because I'm not part of that ASEAN Secretariat delegation to Cambodia, I'm not really privy to, the full extent of what was the outcome of those meetings. What I know for sure is that there's been a decision to, in principle, admit Timor-Leste as a member of ASEAN, provided there is a roadmap and which the Timor-Leste would have to fulfill in due course for them to achieve full membership. So let me just highlight that part. Second, on the peaceful solution of the issues in Myanmar, I know that this has been a topic of the ASEAN Leaders Retreat, on which is conducted right after the plenary of the ASEAN Summit. It is a closed door retreat and highly confidential in nature. So I'm not privy to what took place in there and what was the outcome. But so I leave it at that. Maybe you will know more as soon as the official release has come out.
Okay. All right. So with that, I think we will take a pause on the questions here and perhaps we move forward first. Okay. I think some of the questions are pretty interesting as well. For example, like a region of tech-driven community as well as DEI. So maybe Rodora, you can address it, but if not, it will also be in the conversations later. Okay, as you're going to a breakout room, you can also raise this as part of a conversation, and then we can have a further discussion on that. So with that, let's take a group photo first. So Anh-Tho will be helping us the group photo. Can everyone turn on your camera so we can see your lovely faces? Thank you very much. Perfect. Okay, so we have 62 participants here, which means it's going to take a while. So you're going to smile, okay? So don't stop smiling until Anh-Tho is done. So Anh-Tho, I'll pass the floor to you now. Can you unmute to take the photo? Okay. All right, let's take the first page. Smile. In 3, 2, 1, smile. All right. And now the second page, Anh-Tho. Okay, smile for the second page. In 3, 2, 1. Wait, I'll pause a bit because somebody is turning on. Okay, 3, 2, 1, smile. All right, and now the third page. Okay, keep your smiles in 3, 2, 1, smile. All right, amazing. Anh-Tho, okay? All right, all done. Okay, thank you so much. You If you prefer to keep your cameras on, it'd be nice to see faces other than your names. Okay, but if not, then we also completely understand. You can turn off your camera if you prefer to. Again, for those of you who have any other questions for Rodora, you can type it in the chat. If she's still around, she'll be able to answer them. If not, we will just keep it going during the discussion later. Okay. So before we continue on to the discussion, breakout rooms, we're going to have a quick getting to know you moment, because as you can see here, we have 62 participants from many countries, many time zones, many jobs. So we are going to open a Slido, which you can see here. And you can join in and type down which country are you from. So you can scan the QR code with your phone and we will be able to see your answers. For those of you who prefers to type on their laptop, I paste the link in the chat. You can just click on the link and you will be able to see it as well. Okay, great. So we have someone from Indonesia. All right, so there's a lot of Indonesians. Okay, keep going. Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Singapore. Okay, I know who's that. Okay, from Myanmar, Australia. Keep it coming.
Well, we have a lot of people from Indonesia.
Yeah, I can imagine, right? Out of 27, Indonesia is the largest pool here.
Yeah.
All right, keep it coming. 33 people are in, so we have 62 people. So this is also for me to check, are you actually paying attention or not? I'm just joking.
Oh, we have Leslie Timor here. Great. Oh, we have somebody from UK. Nothing from UK.
Guess so.
I did it, or he's from UK, but based in Asia.
Or is that
Danny,
Danny?
is that you? Danny, is that you? Okay, 42. We're still the largest from Indonesia.
We got about 17 more to complete.
Yeah, okay. Don't off your phone once you have typed up. We have about two more questions. Okay, so we want to see a little bit, get to know you a little bit more. So just keep it going. Okay, I'll give you another 30 seconds for this. All right, 10 seconds. Oh, in 5, 4, 3.
One more typing. We go one more typing. Hold on, hold on. We
Okay,
got one
okay,
more
okay.
typing.
I'm like testing your finger skills.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
one more. Okay. I think we are okay. Yeah. Two more.
We go 2 more. Okay. I'll be nice.
I think.
Okay, I can move and then, all right, I'm moving.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Jobs and roles that you are doing. If you're a HR professional, you can say HR professional. You're a founder, you can say you're a founder, entrepreneur, banker, ESG specialist. I'm a king of all trades, also can. Okay, so we have HR professional. HRBP, CHRO, ESG specialist, head of training.
Chief busybody.
I like that. I think that's my favorite word. Former HRBP and entrepreneur, I assume. Social researcher / career. Interesting. Lecturer, DI advocate. You can put some cute names too if you want. For example, where's my Mr. Busybody?
Below.
CPO. Consultants. We still have the largest HR professionals here.
Yeah.
Essential writer, a coach. We have a coach here. Foundation NGO. What is slash career, Eddie? Do you know what slash career means?
I think Bob actually mentioned about slash career, meaning that they actually move to different roles.
Like
Yeah.
a portfolio career,
Yes.
hence in multiple pies.
Ah. I also have mind mover. Luckily not mind reader. Okay, it's mind mover. Okay. All right. So we've got about 46 people, organizational development, CPO, talent management, HR professional being the largest, social researcher, learning, ESG. So you can see here we have quite a diversified pool of people. You have their names written. So later at the end of the day, we welcome you to paste your LinkedIn links as well in the chat so that people can keep in touch with you. You wouldn't know how this regional summit can actually build a lot of inter-country collaborations. Okay, I'll just give the one participant time to type. Okay, Eddie, so you don't kill me.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I just know what Mallory was mentioning is that there's right now Mallory and myself we're actually having some collaboration. I'm actually now working for one of the Singapore listed company. I'm actually getting Mallory to help me on doing some work. So you can see that over here we can have some good collaboration.
Yep. So who knows? Timor-Leste and working with Myanmar and Myanmar working with UK, you wouldn't know how it's possible.
Yes.
So with that, this is the last question for this round. Okay, we got one more person. I should be nice. You have 10 seconds to type. 5, 4, okay. Typing.
Okay.
OD consultant. Okay, last question. Do you think human development will be more important in ASEAN in the next 5 years? So yes, no, about the same, or unsure. Honest opinions only, please. Thank you.
Okay, while you are completing, I saw one message that's coming in that how can we okay. So I think somebody is actually asking me about how do we encourage country collaboration. So probably at the end of the session, we are able to share a little bit more about that.
Yep. And also in the meantime, like say for those of you who are in the professional scene, corporate scene, there's no stopping on how can you work across suggestions or organizations, because it is, I think the pandemic has shifted quite a fair bit. We have now become a very globalized, a world, right, and connected world. Because for example, today, we don't have to fly to a specific country to do this regional summit. We just wake up, roll out of bed, and good morning, we are here. So everything is possible. And I can see from here, we have a lot of optimistic people, right? So I'm going to invite Bob to comment a little bit about this. So Bob, what do you think of this?
Well, I think this matches what we hear from when we do the certifications, is that a lot of our members believe that not only will human development be more important, but that it will take over human resources or replace in some way. That we also see that human development jobs will be increased, and that there will be also a lot more members. We have a question where we have, how many members, and we have some people say more than 100,000 members. And so this is a very optimistic wave that we are seeing in ASEAN, particularly of the people that we're working with. And since HDO is really like a social movement at this point, I think that this optimism is really the energy that takes HDO forward. So in one sense, I'm not surprised. In another sense, I'm very, very grateful for the enthusiasm of people here. Thank you.
All right. So there you have it. Thank you so much for joining in for today's Slido. So we got to know everybody a little bit more, and you will get a chance to know everyone better in our breakout rooms right now. So we are going to go to a breakout room. Okay, I'm sure in the form when you registered, you got to pick a room of your choice where you want to go. So some of them we are pre-assigned already according to the leads and the reportees. So you have been pre-assigned. Okay, so what's gonna happen is this. So you are allowed to choose the room that you want to go to according to your form. And based on that, there are two things that we'll be discussing. Number one, what are the challenges or issues that you face in regards to the topic? And number two, what are some actions that that AHGO can initiate for 2023 in relation to the topic? Okay, so the 6 rooms are member support service and committees, where you will have people like Nadia and Bob in that session. So the conversations will be a lot on the AHGO membership, as well as how can they AHGO generally facilitate members' growth. And then after that, you have the HD learning and thought leadership, where we have Pip and also Dr. Waylin and also Rocky, I think, who is helping out with the reporting in the HD learning and thought leadership. And then you have HR to HD. In other words, how do we move from HR to HD, where we have Elvin from SHRI, and we have Pip and also Mitty. And then after that, we have the HD Leadership and Corporate ESG in ASEAN, where we will have Daniel, Yani Bulo, as you have met earlier, who will be helping out for this to facilitate and prepare the report. And last but not least, then we have Humanitarian Outreach and DI, where we will have Shri and Yvonne Huang, who will be sharing there as well. And then last but not least, we have the ASEAN Future of HD, where we're led by Farid and helped by Jarpi. So generally what's going to happen is a discussion breakout room. Okay, it's not a lecture series, neither is it a classroom. So when you go there, please don't expect that you're going to be keeping quiet and then waiting for people to give you a class. It's not a class. So when you go there, the facilitator will initiate the conversation, but it's open to everyone to speak. Okay, now there are some popular topics where you have a lot of people. So if you can't unmute yourself, you can just type in the chat and the facilitator will support that as well. Okay, and then please be mindful of how fast you speak, because we have reportees. That means they will come back here later on after the session and do a quick summary, 5-minute summary. Okay, in our group for member support service committees, these are the summary topics of what we discussed. Okay, so that is the reportee's job when they come back here. So please don't speak too fast until they can't write their notes. And of course, if your background is very noisy, you can also type it in the chat. But if you do want to speak up, unmute, and you are afraid to interrupt someone else, you can just raise your hand, and then when it's done, the facilitator will just call you to unmute yourself and share if you prefer to unmute. Okay, mindfully, we as you saw just now, we have so many countries here, so it'll be really, really good to learn from different countries on different perspectives, how they are in each of these categories. Okay, so with that said, Eddie will open the breakout room. Remember, this discussion is only 30 minutes. Everyone to keep very strictly to time. So those that have been assigned, they are the facilitators and reporter. You can decide who is who. You can make your way there to the room right now. And those of you who are not assigned, you can choose your room where you want to go. Okay, so generally you can see in the rooms here, there are member support, HD, HR. You can just press the button join and you will be able to go there. Similarly as well, if you cannot find the breakout room, press the 3-dot button on the more and then scroll to breakout room. You will have the breakout room pop up. Okay, then you'll be able to go there as well. So can we see everybody make your way there? For those of you who want to go, can start making your way to topics that you choose, so we know who's left and then who needs help. If you do need help, you can type down in the chat. We will facilitate that as well. Okay, if you're not sure where you want to go, or you know where you want to go but you can't seem to move, you let us know. We will assign you there. Okay, I will allow you a few more minutes. All right, I can see people moving.
Yep. We have 22 that stay in this room. Okay, 21.
sorry. Okay. The ASEAN room is still pretty empty, so if you want to have a smaller discussion, you can join the ASEAN room, especially if you're working across ASEAN borders.
Hey, Lawrence, let me help you to assign you to the room.
Number 2 for Enda. Okay.
Okay, done.
Done. So those of you who want to go to 2, can see the breakout room. Okay, another one. Those of you who are still here, if you need help going to the breakout room, we will send you there, please.
I don't see Pramata.
I think she went already.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we can close room 6 lah. I'll send the room 6 to room 1. Okay, Eddie?
Okay, let me see how do I close the room.
No, you don't need to close, don't close. You just edit the title. The name.
I can't edit the
Okay lah, then never mind lah. We just don't let people go there. Okay. Yeah, we just don't let people go there. Those of you who are here, which room would you like to join? Okay, I gotta share my screen across the room first. Wait, share to breakout rooms, share. Okay. All the breakout rooms can see slides. Okay.
And I think the popularity even of the other groups, right? HR to HD is a really big one. Human development leadership and corporate ESG is a really big one.
Yep.
And learning and thought leadership is a big one in terms of the number of people that were signing up for these groups. So it's already
okay.
already a good indicator, right?
We even lost our panelist, Bob. We cannot
Yeah.
locate Nazrul.
They're not here. Yeah, they're not here.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, anyway, coincidentally, we have most of the representative of countries in this breakout room, right? So I just want to share one suggestion. You know that 2 years ago, when we are working on the Ahdo constitution, right, when Free Hill helped us to draft our constitution because we want to set up the head office in Singapore. But then, because the situation doesn't allow us to make it, right? So it's time now for us we can have a meeting with all the countries chairs to discuss again some key principle, right? To make out a official constitution. For example, that voting right, member fee, etc. Yeah, that is the basic thing for us to move ahead.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is the sort of the elements of a more formal organization, right? So one is a constitution. What else? What else do?
When I meet up with the professors at the Faculty of Economics who are actually teaching human resource management, they have some kind of conflict and also problems when I proposed the human development aspect and to request together to build up the masters in human development. So their first argument was, why would masters in human development to be developed at the Faculty of Arts and Social Science? Because they think that it is the authority of the Faculty of Economics, Business and Accounts. So that gives me an idea that human development currently among at higher learning institutions is strictly for the Faculty of Economics. So we can
is going to be slimming, then we have to be an HT remit.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. Anybody else?
Hello, Meet.
Hi, Meety.
Here, yeah. Morning. Just want to add also, like it as we've with our discussion since the start of cohort 4. So it's really more of like it differs the transition. Like it's a transition like from HR to HT, but then it differs from one organization, one industry to another, from a transition within a government, a transition within a private entity, and
then the first, you know, of what human development really means. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just to add to that, I agree. I think, you know, I know you've been through the HD certification process, Bulo. I think maybe some of the other people on this line have as well. I have recently as well. And despite that, even within our own group, I think we have slightly different interpretations or internalizations of what we do.
Yeah, it happens, yeah.
Right? So there may be some alignment, but there's definitely nuances in terms of what it means to us, if you like. So I agree. I think that's needed. Natasha. Okay. Yenny, are you back with us yet, or still struggling? Yeah, we still can't hear you, unfortunately. Maybe you could type in your comments to the chat and I'll copy paste them. Thuzar, do you mind going next?
Diversity leads to profitability, and we have a huge talent gap in both digitalization and decarbonization, which covers biodiversity as well. So how can we direct these people with different abilities to participate in the skill economy? I think it's very important. So thank you, Apple, for shining lights on biodiversity, which will be hosted in Montreal on COP15. That's a very interesting dimension of our discussion too. Next person, please. We have to pick up the pace because I'm going to share in the second half of the meeting.
If I'm looking at what kind of value would AHDO provide, even though we say that it's, you know, human development organization, and I think that development goes beyond just training.
Yeah.
It has to go, and that's where we are going to sell a bit more of, be part of this membership, which gives you the opportunity to tap on the networks and give you access to even the more senior members of the community that can help you get more information and more knowledge on what are some of the best practices, and also through those networks, link you up with where are the opportunities for you to actually acquire more of the exposure beyond just the classroom training.
Yeah.
Also,
point.
Bob, I think it extends to communities. And you know how in HD, we're now working not just with the HR track, but also with the different communities. Like now we
Yeah.
have the, you know, deaf communities, we have the all kinds of segments. So that cuts across the learning is much more richer, as opposed to maybe you are part of a just a local like MHRM or Vietnam IRM. This is regional. Singapore would have Singapore HRMs. I mean, it's great. It's very, you know, but this is regional and it cuts across the total demography of society.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we see about half of the projects that people come up with in the ALP are humanitarian projects. So yeah, and so these are communities like what we're seeing in cohort 4 with the deaf people. Everybody appreciates that, and we're able also to create a pretty impactful project for them in terms of policy for deaf people in the region, which is what they need.
Yeah.
In terms of you know, access, but also just, you know, there are new technologies coming along to help them, etc. So I think, yeah, what you say, Nadia, about participating in non-professional or participating in humanitarian networks or other types of networks, right? How would you put that? Or in non-transactional, you know, to use the word.
I would say enhanced network across across all layers of society.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other separate point would be, if you look at it, is the way to go. Everyone's talking about UN SDG, ESG, future of work, and so on. We did talk in the certification that eventually, I don't know, HR as a profession would probably be diminishing because it's just so narrow.
Yeah.
So if you join us, then you are basically having early access to this whole world of the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because even in ILO, I think Fatkam, you probably also know, and Farid was there as well in ILO, people, everyone's talking about beyond just the typical traditional HR or union employee related kind of issues, but we're already now talking about enriching lives of our workforce, eradicating poverty, scaling up, making sure that we can enhance the standard of living in post-COVID. So it's a lot more bigger than. So you can say I don't know, transformational issues rather than transactional issues.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and be more future ready, which is still, you know, a big thing. Maybe we can those of you who are new, like Calvin, we know each other. Many of us are chairs of the committee, so maybe we can first of all welcome you.
Hi, Calvin.
Hey, hi everybody.
Tell us who you are and what do you think?
Sure. My name is Calvin, so I'm Singaporean, working in the finance sector for my daytime job. I'm also running a non-profit that does youth development in the ASEAN and the China region. So I got invited by a common friend, so to come and hear about what's happening in this space. So I'm very new, yeah. Just want to hear comments and to see. I think for grassroots and for youth development associations, what can we do more together for the region?
So basically, you're already involved a lot in these community organizations. And
yeah. So for my non-profit, we actually have chapters across all the 10 ASEAN countries. And then we work closely with universities, especially to do upskilling and then for the students to develop cross-cultural competencies in the region, right? For them to understand how other countries work in terms of the mindset, in terms of the local economy, and lastly, inspire them, right, to take opportunities in the region. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So what would you answer to the question, what does HDO need to do? We're a very young organization. So we need to build it.
Right. I think it's, for me, I haven't really heard the first part of it because I was in another meeting. I was thinking about how, you know, for with this ASEAN branding, how can we, maybe find some common landing points for human development, right? Because I think coming from Singapore, we're at a very different stage of human development. The focus is very different. How can we then align more with countries around the region, right? So that we can work together as one rather than having separate silos. And the other part is to involving the young people, right? Because I think young people nowadays feel that they want to feel empowered, but they feel a bit right? Like they don't really have the resources. How can we make sure that they're involved in this process? But at the same time, I feel that a lot of young people don't really know what's happening in the world, right? A bit too overly optimistic and idealistic in how the world works. So how can we help them to understand, some limitations on what is really happening, so that they have a more realistic outlook, so that they are not disappointed all the time, right? with things happening in the world.
Yeah. Gen Z is very important.
Yeah.
Even we saw in the American elections, which everybody sort of followed at a distance, but it was the young people that made the difference. That was the surprise of the elections. And I think we're seeing a huge wave of power with Gen Z in ASEAN that have this idea of purpose, etc. Very good point. Okay.
I mean, even close to the whole Malaysia elections coming soon, right? Like how the youths are going to be.
Okay, Farid. Yeah, what's going to happen?
We're all waiting. We don't know. It's just a confusing state.
Farid, how about you?
Yeah,
you also have the you're also in the employers organization, right? So you and Nadia both, but
yes.
From your point of view, what would you say?
Yeah, you mentioned about what's in it for me from the membership. What will be the benefits? Of course, I think for the last 10 minutes, we are talking about networking, have accessibility to the network of human development. Now, if I put myself in their shoes, we need to differentiate, because we mentioned about the Gen Z. They will say that, well, if I just want to network, I can do that in LinkedIn or in any social media. So how we can differentiate, how we can add value in terms of our network. So that's something that we have to crack. Not only as Pat Cameron mentioned, we shouldn't be overloading them with training programs. So what else that the value of that particular networking? So I still yet to discover that, but I would like to open for discussion how we can differentiate when we talk about, yes, we value the networking, yet how we be different from other platforms.
I guess, Farid, I think we have the leverage of the ASEAN Secretariat. I mean, just today listening to Rodora, I just realized, oh my God, they actually did a lot of things. But to be honest, if I didn't attend today's session, I wasn't aware of that. So there is a what do you call this? A huge opportunity for projects that we can partner with ASEAN, which our members can then participate in. If they're not with us, then they won't be able to have access to that. That's me just thinking. I just had a call from my chairman. I'm just going to call him back quickly.
Yeah, I agree with that. How we can leverage on the collaboration with the ASEAN. Yeah. So yeah, that's something that we can look at, and see.
Okay. We have to figure some concrete actions. This will be helpful for Nadia. What would you suggest as concrete actions for the next year, right? And we have a lot of the chairs here, or board members, and what do we need to do? I mean, Phuc, first of all, congratulations on the overview that you gave at the beginning, because I mean, even though I've been involved in this a lot, it's good to see that there's an overview of what we have done and where we are now. So I think all of us got a good view of where we are now. What do we need to do next? And I think in this case, it's going to be helping Nadia Farid, who are taking the board position and who will be looking at what we need to, what kind of milestones do we want to achieve. I see Calvin nodding his head. So Calvin, why don't you begin?
Okay. Let me. I mean, I'm gonna always come from the youth angle, right? For me, so it's about young people. I would say that in my own sense in the ecosystem, there are many other players, be it the official or non-official. Like for us, we work very closely with the ASEAN level people, like ASEAN Foundation,
right?
And ASEAN Young Entrepreneur Networks.
Yeah.
So ASEAN University Network. I think for them, their problem is really getting youths together to do programs, because there is a gap in terms of what youth want to do and what I think for associations think what youth want to do. It's not the same. So I guess having some form of a youth task force will be helpful for all these big ASEAN level people to get some insights on what programming will be helpful. Yeah, I think that'll be step one for the youths. And then, to be honest, I think youths are really interested in all these programs. As mentioned correctly by Nadia, I think the ASEAN branding is really important. And how do you make it resonate with their lives, right? Because ASEAN to many youths it's a very far away idea, right? You hear about it during official meetings, right? How do you make it more commonplace and grassroots is something that we want to do more, bring it down from the pedestal and bring it closer to youth lives. Yeah, so it could be simple programs like mentoring, right? I mean, mentoring is really done all over the place, but can we make it slightly different from HDO perspective, where apart from just older person sharing, could we do it maybe a workshop format? One example I give is because for my association, we work closely with UNDP, the United Nations, to do train the trainers type program. Right? So you want to empower these young people. I'm not sure whether for HDO do we have programs where we can make it easier to share with young people, and then they can take all this curriculum, this content to share with other youths as well. So that could be like a potential way of working together with young people.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. Okay. So I've got how to help youth make ASEAN a reality, right?
Yep.
So
they're not just on the receiving end, but actually your partners. Yeah, your partners in doing this together. Yeah.
Valerie just said we've got 5 minutes left.
Okay, go speed it up.
Okay, Nadia, over to you. I have one page on sort of ideas, and the second page is on the actions, right? So I'm just calling this Actions 2023. I got one is collaborate more with ASEAN institutions. And I think
are you going to show it later? No.
Yes, I have to show. So I'll show you guys. Maybe I'll share now.
Show it now, because otherwise I'll take note. Because you're expecting me to share, right? Yeah.
Well, the reporter was the one that.
Okay, you can share that.
You lead the discussion.
Okay. Good.
I've been leading the discussion, so why don't we just reverse it? You can share. Okay, but can you see?
Yeah.
You can see? Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one, I'm sort of, I've got three things. Focus on high impact projects, youth education, inclusion, put in place a sustainable organization, constitution membership. We didn't talk about committees. We're finding that the committees are not really working that well. Maybe it's because we don't have the right committee people, or maybe it's just a question of maturity, or maybe we need a different type of organization. We find that projects work a lot, but committees don't. But I'm going to leave that. Develop member services, build your ASEAN professional network, participate in non-transactional community, social networks, CSOs or civil society organizations, become future ready for human development needs like ESG, Gen Z. And then the second page is actions for 2023. I can put collaborate more with ASEAN institutions, as we saw with both Phuc's summary of what we're already doing and Rodora's, much bigger thing of what all these projects, which we criticize as being very administrative and bureaucratic, and it's true that they are. You can get really stuck in that, but we still, what I found is that collaborating with people like the ASEAN University Network gave us a whole new perspective, right? So policy we can work on policy and projects, etc. And then help youth make ASEAN a reality, mentorship, internship. This is what Calvin was just saying. You have other examples, Calvin?
Well, for instance, we've been doing this program called Industry Immersion, where we actually get youth in ASEAN to explore some up and coming industries that are important for the region, but they might not find it very interesting. One example is supply chain, right? Extremely important. It's not really well known and popular amongst youth.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. The immersion, we in the certification we do virtual immersions, and it's very popular because they talk about a different country, but we can do more. Any other ideas? Nadia, Farid, Fook?
Well, on the action plan, I would like to suggest on the collaboration with ASEAN, because they already have their initiative. So how we can further leverage on that. So I agree with Nadia on that. So maybe that can be one initiative.
Leverage on what?
The
ASEAN.
ASEAN. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they already have their programs. We just tag along with them.
So
and I think that also came from the slide that Rodora had on asking,
yes.
you know, what can Ahdo do for them? I took this slide just now.
Correct. Yeah. Agree. Yeah.
Okay. So I can put new projects. I can put new initiatives.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Because she said, how can Ahdo help lifelong learning, offer apprenticeship, engage in industry?
Yeah.
Then there's the decent work standards, occupational safety.
Yeah.
So there's huge range of things that they're asking us to help, which means they'll be welcoming us to provide the resources to be in their projects, because they would have their full work. So we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Yep. Agree with that. Yeah. So like for us, our partnership with all these ASEAN level associations is not something new. It's more like complementing them in their existing programs. To see where we can plug in the gaps for them.
Okay. I have one question before we wrap up, which is we've got these fantastic certified people that are certified human development professionals. And then that's all they have, right? We don't have a follow-up. We don't have what's the next step, what's next for them. We saw that a lot of them are participating. So what can we do for them?
Okay.
Or existing members. Yeah.
I have an idea for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, because I have the same questions like you. That what is next for those who are certified? Because we are building up the pool of the HD professionals.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then they are Ahdo also that try to create a larger and larger human development communities.
Right.
Right. So people will join us not just like for knowledge and learning, not just for network, but they would fight to have the opportunity.
I didn't set the agenda.
We'll go with what we have. Okay.
We didn't finish 3. We'll just have to wing it.
Sure. Okay, so HR to HD, we have I don't know if I pronounce it right, but Fit, is that how I pronounce your name?
It's Puit, Mallory.
Puit, okay, Puit. All right, great. And then can everyone type down whoever that's in the group so we know who you are as the presenter, so we know how to spotlight you later?
What do you want us to do?
Whoever, okay, so Daniel will be doing the presentations. I just need to know who is presenting, so we will know who should we spotlight when it's time. So okay, thank you. Pete will be doing for group 2. Group 1, Bob's group, Nadia, who will be presenting.
Group 1, Nadia will present. I'll show the slides.
All right, so wow, you have slides. Okay, so you have group 1 will be Nadia, efficient. Group 2, no wonder you said not enough time. Group 2, you have Pip, thank you. Group 3, HR to HD, we have Puit. And then group 4 will be Daniel. Group 5 will be Shri. Okay, great. So with that said, every presenter, you will get about 5 to 6 minutes to present what you have shared. Okay. And of course, if anyone in the audience have any questions, you can type in the chat for them to answer. Once time's up, then we'll move to the next group. Okay. So with that said, I'll pass to Bob and Nadia for group 1. Can we give them a virtual round of applause?
Thank you. Okay, can you all see?
Yep.
Nadia?
Yeah, Bob, you want, okay, yes. All right, so I'll start very quickly. So to start with, when we started the group, we didn't have we didn't have many participants. I guess everyone else in the other groups, but I think we did have Kelvin later on to join us. So the group was consistently, I guess, fortunately, with mainly the board members, and we decided, okay, we'll come up with something that we can offer based on the discussion. Although it would have been nice to get feedback, and a lot of feedback came from Kelvin, who was part of our team as well. So the first one we said, as a member, if you imagine what would you want to get out of this, is that being able to focus on, high impact projects, because we talked about HD just now, and you heard Rodora and also Pak Bulo and Folk. We're talking about a whole range of things that we discuss, not just the typical traditional HR things. So from youth education inclusion. So if you join us, you actually have you actually have access to that. I think the other thing is to have the significance of placing it as a sustainable organization. So meaning if you join us, the constitution we will be rather clear in terms of your membership. The next thing is to develop member services. So as you join us, what else can you benefit? The key thing is that we realize people like to network within the group, because if you talked about the typical local setup we have, like MIHRM or Vietnam HRM or Singapore HRM, for example, or any other association that you join, the significant difference is that you have beyond your local entity, so you have exposure to regional network. But I think the difference that we need to identify is what kind of networking would you get? Because if you talk about network, you can network within LinkedIn or any other platforms. So the leverage that we can have with ASEAN Secretary is an important thing, because we can then give access to our members, the participation in a lot of other projects that ranges from non-transactional community works, community services kind of organization, things that are related to future ready, things that are more of relevance to where the world is moving towards. Can we move to the next one, Bob? I think we've seen today when Rodora shared with us, there's just so many other projects or policies that they're working on. I would say if we didn't attend, or at least for me, we didn't attend today's session, we're not aware of those things that's happening. So the advantage is that with Ahdo, we can actually have direct access to work and partner with ASEAN Secretariat. So as a member of Ahdo, there's huge amount of opportunities to write on projects with ASEAN, and that gives in an open concept of the range of projects that a member can get involved with. We talked a lot about youth, and I think that is a huge segment in the society that is growing the next generation. So mentoring, internship, immersion, I think Kelvin spoke about how immersion programs can actually be useful, especially now when we have hybrid models. Technology has allowed us to be able to do that. And with ASEAN as a platform, you can actually fast forward a lot of the accelerated programs that we can do. And for existing members, we didn't have time to finish. I think Fook was saying something and he was cut off. But we said that there are more things beyond your certification, because for those members who are already certified, so what's next after certification? I think there's a lot more that we can put in place. Access to many other libraries of information, which we will be building up. So I think I'll just stop there. Maybe the other members of Bob can add in if there's anything else.
The takeaway I got from the existing members, and because there's quite a few here, is what the point Fook was making, and we'll have to elaborate on this, is that we were thinking like, what services do you need, etc. So making the members passive sort of consumers, right? I paid my money for membership, what do I get? Well, that exists, but what the point Fook was making, I think, was that the members want to take action to shape the organization and to move things forward. And there's many initiatives that members can take. And what we have to do as an organization is to link those things up and make other people aware of what's going on. So I like that a lot. And that was something I hadn't been thinking about before. Anybody else? I know that we have quite a few board members, like Pekam, are you there? Any thoughts you had? Because you're involved in a lot of organizations.
Yeah, hi. Yes, I'm still here. Yeah.
Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just like to add that the value which AHDO can bring to any of the organizations is really our ability to use human capital development as a baseline that helps us create a lot of networks, as well as all these opportunities for us to make human capital development better for our own respective geographies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Mallory, are we out of time? I would guess that we only had 5 minutes, right?
I mean, I was about to say you can wrap up now.
Okay.
But yes, okay. Dan has a comment about it. Think about committees focus on specific topics that involve members and give them access to the ASEAN network. Anyone wants to briefly comment on that, or no? All good?
Yeah, I think I can say we mentioned just now about leveraging on ASEAN. So, we can actually think about having committees and working directly with ASEAN, because if you're not a member, you may not have access to ASEAN Secretariat, and so we can actually look at that.
Yeah. One final point, perhaps, Farid, maybe I can address to you, because a lot of people here are HR or consultants or trainers, but we haven't yet, and that's probably where we need to go, is involve CEOs, company heads, people that are running companies, the employers organization. Farid, you're in the employers organization in Malaysia. What do you see that we should be doing in the next year?
At least for Malaysia, I think we had this discussion with the board of Malaysia. We're going to have a session with key stakeholders, especially the CEOs, the captain of corporate Malaysia, to get their in a way their approval and their buy-in on this. Yeah. So I think for Malaysia, the board, we are looking and focusing on that. Thanks, Bob. Maybe Nadia can blend. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like what Farid says, one of the first thing we said is it's about shifting the mindset, right? I think today in the marketplace, a lot of people talk about HR. When we talk about human development, it's just about learning, training, but it's beyond that. So by tackling the corporate CEOs and the mega companies, we want to influence it downwards. And Farid and myself in the Malaysian Employees Council, where we represent employers, which has different sizes. You've got large MNCs and large and SMEs. I think we need to work across that and bring that awareness so that we can convert the thinking and shift that thinking to HG rather than just looking at HR, which is what is happening at the moment.
Okay. So with that, thank you so much for Group 1. I hope everyone got some good insights from it as well. And thank you, Kelvin, for joining the discussion. So now we have Group 2. I'll pass it over to Pete.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Mallory. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Group 2 spoke about HR learning and thought leadership. And first confession, we didn't get much of the thought leadership. We were talking about the HD learning primarily. A big shout out of thanks to Wei Lin, who opened the discussion with an explanation of the development of the Masters of Human Development at the University of Malaya. So thank you, Wei Lin. A huge amount of work has gone into this. As a lecturer, I was not jealous to hear the workload. So let's just look at some of the challenges that we were raising. The first one, the stumbling block around learning, is where does human development sit? Particularly at faculty level. Does it sit in business? Does it sit in economics? Does it sit in law? Does it sit in social science? Where does it belong? In fact, at the University of Malaya, it is now sitting within the Faculty of Arts and Social Science, which the group tended to agree was the right place for it to be housed. But it's not without its challenges. Obviously, Wei Lin has gone through a number of challenges, including where does it belong? How do we approve the program? So anyone in academia knows that a year for a standard approval is pretty good timing. You can't just change a curriculum very quickly. To introduce a new program and a program that sits both cross-disciplinary and into faculty, certainly in terms of being able to staff it, is extremely difficult. And I'm sure a very lonely journey on many occasions, Wei Lin. You're not alone. You're not alone. And this is the other challenge that with learning human development is who teaches it. So once we find out where it's housed and what the content needs to look like, how do we get people to teach it? Now, universities typically do not like anyone teaching other than faculty who hold a PhD. That's the standard approach by universities. But of course, this type of program needs very different types of people who from industry, people from different businesses, whether it's not-for-profits, say people from the ASEAN, like Rodora, I think would make an amazing lecturer on certain topics, on the right topics. So many of the challenges that come with human development learning in tertiary education comes from the issue that it is going outside normal process in many, many ways to be able to get it up and running. We then shifted the discussion into how this works in a business context. So we were talking about if we were in business, how would we access it? What type of program do we need to look at? And there was the idea, a great idea about, do we do this as continued professional development, like an executive education program through the university, where there is the content, but it is accessible to working professionals. And this is linked to a couple of issues. One of the issues is the approval of being able to undertake the masters. Business would not approve it or fund it unless it was directly related to the work that they are doing. Now, if the business did not believe that human development was necessary for an example, a human resources professional, then they would not fund it. Then they would not support it. And as a result, we'd need to look at other things such as scholarship and sponsorship through other organizations such as Ahdo, so that people could make that transition or add that extra string to their bow. The other idea that came up, or the other challenge that came up, was the difference between a master's program that deepens knowledge and understanding in a certain topic to the expectations of an executive education program that focuses on skills and competencies, how to change this from knowledge to action. And that was another reason for the support of the continued professional development. Some of the other things that we talked about were how to share this program across countries. And this came down also to the need of consistency as a program across ASEAN. So for example, if you're studying human resources in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and in Vietnam, there is a degree of consistency in the curriculum. If you are hiring someone from Vietnam as an HR person into Indonesia, we understand that the base knowledge that they will have, it will be consistent, and it is applicable in other jurisdictions. So there was the discussion around how do we ensure that there is consistency in the topics to be able to be recognized regionally, but also relevant regionally. And then we talked, the conversation evolved into the biggest challenge we have around making the, human resources understand the importance of human development. And there's a lot of gaps that are existing. A lot of human development issues that HR do not see. HR have not been trained to see. My background, as most know, is HR, and I haven't seen them for 15 years of my career. Only since moving and being more aware of the human development space do we become aware of them. So, and I know everyone in this group is aware, that's why we're here. But if we're looking at human resources in a broader context, and they are our target for the education and learning opportunities, how do we help them understand the issues that exist that they are otherwise unaware of, and can then build on the learning for human development? And that tied in with the consistency issue as well. Just a shout out of thanks to everyone who contributed in our group. Again, specifically to Wei Lin for her sharing. It was a great discussion, and I hope I have done it justice in my summary. Thank you, everyone. Happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure the rest of the group will help me out in answering questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Pip, for a great summary. And thank you, Wei Lin, as well, for kickstarting a very good conversation. So anyone has any questions for them in regards, or any questions you have at all in regards about HD, Human Development Learning, and thought leadership, mainly about human development learning. So L&D in companies, what about L&D?
Really good question. I'll be honest, we didn't get around to it. Well, we wanted to, but we didn't get to it, I'm afraid, Bob. And so while I could share my opinion, I wouldn't be sharing the opinions of the group, and I'd rather represent the opinions of the group. If anyone from the group has an idea that they would like to share with Bob, please feel free.
Yeah. So anyone in I think you have quite a big group as well. So anyone has any idea about what they think about L&D in companies? The floor is yours if you want to speak. If not, you can type down in the chat as well if you are mic shy. Okay. If not, then okay. If not, then if you are one, you can continue typing. If not, then Wei Lin, do you have anything you want to say to Bob about L&D in companies?
Okay, hi Bob. I can just share with you the recent experience I have with the company I am helping out with an NGO, RHSF, in Johor. So they are very open to have, I cannot say structure, I cannot say templates, but certain kind of suggestions on how to insert HD within the staff that are working at HR. It's just to kind of creating an awareness from the beginning, and then they would like to take further into the discussions with the HR staff, and also the managers, and also the supervisors, the line leaders, and also with the workers. Okay, so what we are doing now is to think and to structure certain kind of workshops with different groups, with managers, supervisors, the HR staff, and also the workers from different nationalities and also cross nationalities, to speak about certain aspects of human development that can be conveyed in the simplest dialogue and conversations, in order for them to have the hang of it first. So it is still in the early process. I can share later next year about how it goes, but that is I think that is a good attempt because the company actually has invited me to look into the social cultural aspect of the migrant workers, interactions between nationalities, and also interactions between operators with the line leaders, with the supervisors, with the managers. There's a lot a kind of misunderstanding, because although we speak about Asian values, I remember in our group we were speaking about Asian values, how to bring this out across nationals. Of course we're Asian, but even if we share Asian values, but the way we practice and the way we convey it is different from one nationalities to another. And even though in a company where there's many different nationalities from ASEAN countries, they still have a lot of misunderstanding and also suspicions towards each other. So these are the kind of thing that HR don't, I am sorry, but I think this is the aspect that HR don't really look at, because it is left to the supervisors and line leaders to solve the problems. Yeah, but this particular company really wants to see it as a priority because they don't like to see turnover, especially among the locals. There's a lot of turnover among the locals because there is no much communications and connections with the migrant workers of different nationalities at the floor. Okay, that how much I can share. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good point, Minnie. Thank you so much for that. Just to really quickly add on to that as well, for the L&D's aspects of corporations, I think some key points to take note is, number one, I think we have to firstly take note that learning does not equate to training. So in other words, when we want to say we want to promote learning, every company like to say, okay, we're going to send our staff for training. But training is not the only way, it's a tool, right? So there are many, many key aspects you want to take note of when you want to design an L&D program for your team, which includes coaching, mentoring, experiential learning, action learning, projects, and other key foundations you might want to take note of is about time organizations start incorporating learning or a person's development plan into performance measurement as well. Of course, not everything is fully into numbers, not everything is just result oriented, but also how much can an employee grow further in an organization based on their development. So I've seen many organizations in Malaysia started doing this as well, which is great because they started incorporating development outcomes as part of performance measurement to determine increments and bonuses. So those are some good aspects that you might want to take into account. And the last part will be in HDI, we talk a bit about lifespan, right? Which includes physical, emotional, and mental. So beyond just a talk about mental well-being, emotional well-being, also think about how can you cultivate culture through such thing as well. Okay, so that's just a quick brief summary on the L&D aspects. So now in the right time, we're going to move to the third topic, HR to HD. So we're going to pass the floor now to Puit to take it over.
Thank you, Mallory. So Alvin, I've just sent you a message to you. It's okay. Is it okay for me to present on behalf of the team?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. Let me share my slide.
This was a huge group, right?
Yeah, it's a very big group. I'll spotlight Alvin as well if you have anything to add.
The team was led by Alvin, and we have a number of people, including Lawrence, inputting into the discussion. The first question we were looking is the challenge that we will be facing transition from HR to HD. We discussed about the differentiating between HR and HD, and the common theme that always come out when we discuss about HD. So there were a lot of discussion about, although there are a lot of HR trends and new way of doing and articles and processes coming out in the industry, but there's still, unclear of what is HR and what is HD. And then why do we need as an HR professionals to shift from HR to HD? The other topic that we discussed is about the measures. So when it comes to organization, it needs to be a lot more concrete, and not as an HR professional per se, but as a business and organization. The only way that we felt that it's going to be easier for transition is how do we enable organization to measure the success of HD point of view. Again, and then it based on the individual business's maturity. Some areas, of HR will still have to remain, including the recruitment or the legislative requirement of securing the rights of employee and, up to the well-being and OD of the organization. But until today, we're talking about OD is not even, embedded, recognized function of HR. So it will be a lot more difficult for a business leader to accept the transition from HR to HD. So the move from HR to HD, do we need the other challenge that we see is that requesting or advising the HR professional to shift from HR to HD. This is not HR anymore, going to HD. And would that be, a bit more easier that we shift them and transition from HR to HD and expanding the scope of HR rather than choose either HR or HD. But we are starting to see, although saying so, we are starting to see the transition starting in some private entity, government organization that was particularly highlighted by MITI on the Philippines. The other thing is that, criteria of HD. So what is HD and how do we, measure the HD and the category of HD in an organization? So this is the whole topic of the challenge from HR to HD. The actions that we set, we discussed is based on what the challenges that we had is the highlighting and advocating the benefit of the HD value into the business. So example, like a white paper or, a strategy or a framework. We discuss about how do we make it more sustainable in businesses and organizations. So we were discussing about, green initiations and transparency index in all those ethical, measures that we have in organization that is not particularly driving the profit in organization per se, but it is adding value and to the stakeholders and shareholders, benefits and values. So how do we make sure that HD is, included in that one of the category on those area and subjects? We talk about the legislative actions on the protecting employees' well-beings and rights, and can it be extended into certain areas to include the HD remit into it? So where Ahdo can advocate and support organization and government in setting up those strategies. Again, into the leadership side of it. So, we talk about leadership transition into leadership, quality transition into more people-centric. And can that be, include the HD side of it to educate the HR professional as well as business leader in using that as a category or as a principle of leadership. And the last part that we talk about is the basic education. Can the whole concept of HD can be embedded throughout the basic education so that it's not becoming a new subject and a new concept for professional only, but also looking at the whole society and community enhancement, learning and changing the behavior of it. So that is the whole summarized version of what we discussed. Alvin, I'll hand it over to you or the team member if anyone want to add on.
Yeah, maybe you can add on while answering the question as well, open to anyone in the team. From Daniel, in relation to transition requirement from HR to HD, do you believe this can achieve as a natural evolution or requires a mindset revolution?
Personally, I think we really need to change the mindset as well. So, even when we are talking about the people who are in the cohort, ourselves are still, in the journey of understanding and accepting, and very clear on what needs to be delivered and what are expecting of us as HR professionals. So definitely that needs to be mindset changes, and we have to, there are a lot of work that needs to go in for all of us to be clear of the journey, and then lead others coming along the journey as well.
Nice. Elvin, anything to add?
Yeah, so I think Pete summarized it very nicely, and I think just a few keywords here, right? Number one, of course, is the continuous advocacy that we really need to do through education and as well as enabling, all right? In terms of what Dan said earlier on in the group itself about engaging business leaders through a very succinct, one-pager type of intervention itself. But more importantly, I think the whole entire principles from HR to HD needs to fall into what I call a purposefully driven, or rather purposefully designed and driven concept and for value uplift, right? And whereby when we talk about value, it's not just about the dollars and cents profitability of the organization, but for the entire ecosystem itself, right? So that's where we are coming from. Thanks.
Thank you. And then added 2 more points. We need a simply graphic that explains that what is HD and how it benefits business to present to business leaders. Number 2, develop stronger courses in HD. As embedded early education, but offer majors in HD to help develop future pipeline. I think it's something like the business degree, but major in human development rather than HR specifically. And then it can also be part of Meeting Edit, could be part of a culture transformation movement within the organization, designing specific interventions targeting such. So, all right, can we give a round of applause to group 3? I think that was an amazing sharing. And again, a very big group. And I can see a lot of people who are actually very interested in this topic as well, which is great. Okay, and now we're going to move to the next group, which is the topic 4 on HD leadership and corporate ESG in ASEAN. If I'm not wrong, it's by Daniel, right?
Yeah, thank you, Mallory. Well, I heard, I think it was Yvonne earlier saying that they were going to have to wing it on the action side of it. And I think we're going to have to do the same thing as well, because we had a very interesting discussion, mainly centered around what are some of the key challenges. So we didn't quite get around to capturing all of our actions, but at least I'll share what we did get down. But let me start with some of the challenges that we discussed around HD leadership and ESG and corporate organizations across ASEAN. First of all, just building on what's just been discussed in terms of HR to HD, when we talk about HD leadership, the group felt that our definition of HD, of course, is very broad by nature, but as a result of which, it's often not well understood, right? And even within, I think, this group, for example, we can probably say that what HD means to us and how we internalize it probably differs to some degree from person to person. So being really clear on what we mean by that is important when we go external and engage more widely on it, so we can be really succinct about what it is and how it adds value. So that's the first point. In terms of the benefits to the private sector, if you like, around ESG, what did we think were some of the challenges and issues around that? We zoomed in really on the S part, as you would expect. And we said that, of course, one of the biggest challenges is how it's perceived in industry at the moment, which generally speaking, across most organizations, we felt it's seen as more of a box ticking exercise and something that they just need to do to comply in order to meet certain standards or customer audit requirements, or whatever it might be, and not something that fundamentally is seen as a means with which the organization can create positive value, right? So it's about minimizing your footprint, in a sense, or minimizing the negative impact that you have, as opposed to utilizing it as a tool in order to create value for the organization, but also the stakeholders, wider stakeholders of the organization. And again, linking back to the discussion we've just had, in order to make that shift, really, we're talking about a mindset shift, right? And that's not easy, of course, because we're talking typically about leaders that have been in business and organizations for many decades through what has been an era of shareholder primacy, I think it's fair to say. And therefore they've been quite heavily conditioned in that sense in terms of what their role is as a leader. What we're talking about is really moving to a much broader sense of value creation and a broader definition of that, and one that requires a much more long-term outlook in terms of what it takes to be successful. Of course, there are some very positive examples out there. I was reading a post from Alan Jobe, the CEO of Unilever, recently, who interestingly mentioned that, of course, they're a sustainability-focused organization, but they want to do that because it's the right thing to do. But actually, the main reason why they do that is because it makes business sense. He talks about ESG being critical for enabling higher growth, lowering risk, and being a magnet for talent. So they're very clear about that. And the question and challenge, I suppose, for us is how do we spread the word in that sense, and how do we engage leadership more generally to understand that, you know, what made us successful in the past may not be the right model for the future, because of course the world's changing, and fundamentally stakeholder expectations transforming rapidly, which means that things will be different in the future, and a different mindset's required. Importantly on that, in terms of how you then go about building a business model, if you like, around sustainability or an ESG centered core. We also said that it's really important for organizations to be authentic in the way in which they do that. Of course, we see a lot of greenwashing. As human beings, we tend to be quite perceptive, right? So if it's not authentic, people will know that and see that in the way we communicate. So whatever organizations come up with, it needs to be very much based on what their core identity is, and how they fundamentally create a positive impact in the world for human beings in some shape or form, and they need to mean it. Measurability, we discussed as a challenge. Again, much talked about. We can talk about, you know, the differences between KPIs in terms of quantitative assessment progress and KPIs, key development indicators, as well, qualitative assessments. But we also know, again, going back to leadership, that KPIs have been around for decades and very much ingrained in the language of business, and therefore transitioning leaders to get comfortable with the idea of actually measuring progress in the form of not just numbers and statistical values, but also in terms of qualitative measures of progress is not an easy transition. So that's a good challenge for us as well. It was mentioned that obviously, if we think about the wider context of the global economy, a big challenge for us in the months and years ahead is centered on the impending, if you like, potential global recession. And of course, we all know what happens in a recession, and we all know typically what parts of budget gets targeted for cuts when organizations go into a much more defensive mode of protecting their bottom line. And obviously that's a big risk and a big challenge for us we see in the years ahead when it comes to encouraging and promoting human development in the face of such economic challenges. Of course, government can be a big enabler for us in terms of policy evolution. And I think that's an opportunity, I think, for us as much as a challenge in terms of how can we educate and influence and work with government to move the needle in terms of policy and the expectations that they put on the business world for those that operate within their region. But we said that it's not just about policy, actually, especially in ASEAN. In many countries, it's as much about how do we actually enforce policy rather than create policy itself. We have relatively mature regulations in some areas, but the challenge is often about how do we actually ensure that organizations are compliant, how do we follow it and drive that through. Yeah, I think I've covered all of the key challenges which we discussed. In terms of some of the feasible actions that we talked about, okay, how can we actually make a difference and move things forward? First of all, hopefully this will happen as a matter of course now, all be well, but full ASEAN accreditation of AHDO we felt would give us and the organization a much greater influence over member states, enable us to really network and influence much more strongly going forward to embed those principles. We felt we could also be more proactive with the various chambers in terms of organizing or offering speakers and panel sessions to support and engage the wider business world, especially in discussion around this. And going back to the evolution versus revolution in a much more evolutionary way as well. So linking this to wider trends around sustainability and what that means for human beings and human development in that context, and how we can contribute and help organizations. Finally, we talked about how can we create value for organizations by offering a model that is an expansion on the three recognized human development indicators, which are typically what's measured at country level, but actually create a model that can be adopted at organizational level as well, that companies and businesses across the region can use to understand where they are today. So what's their baseline, if you like, in terms of measuring their human, hopefully net positive contribution today, and what can they do to really move the needle in terms of driving increased positive impact through their strategies in the year ahead, and identify those activities and strategies that create value, not just for the organization itself, but also for all of those that are involved or connected with the organization. It's not an easy task, but with a framework like that, of course, it becomes much easier to actually monitor and reach progress.
Okay, thank you so much for a very comprehensive summary. Okay, so there is a question from Bob. Do you think the HD certification or master HD really position someone at a leadership position in a organization or as a consultant? And also, while anyone would like to address that, can we have Shri stand by for the last presentation for the last 5 minutes? Okay. Shri mentioned that camera is not working, so she'll just need to summarize it. But Danny, you can take on that. It's a quick answer, like maybe a minute answer. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I think it can be both. But speaking from my own experience, I think it certainly can be as a leadership position as well. So I think for those that are educated in HD, they can play a role in facilitating and enabling businesses to get their head around this, and importantly, translate it into the language of the business. That's the key role that we can play. How do we understand what the contextual business pressures, strategies, opportunities are, and then convert the philosophies around HD into meaningful practices that create positive value within the context of that organization.
All right. Thank you so much, Danny, and awesome job to the team for all your ideas and discussion. I don't know how you say wing it, but that was pretty good. Okay, so with that, we pass the floor now to Shri. Shri's camera is not working, so she just verbally shared it. And then Yvonne, the topic is on the humanitarian. Okay, so Shri, floor's yours. 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. So just have a deck here so that I could visually take you all through. I think Yvonne has also mentioned at the start, such an interesting and right topic. We couldn't really get to spend enough time on the next steps and how AHDO can handle that. But just to start off, just want to give a huge shout out to Yvonne for facilitating this session, as well as Nisi, Anthony, Emmeline, and the translators who were on the chat as well. And we discussed quite a fair bit in terms of challenges and issues. I think essential in terms of what came out during the humanitarian outreach and DEI discussion was that there was a lot of questions that needs to be answered.
right? Typically around awareness. So what does it mean for DEI in ASEAN? I think that is a very big topic that came up, and I know Anthony brought this up when followed by a couple of us. So the question was, how do we provide also space to understand the meaning and reiterate the learnings in ASEAN when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion? We were talking about often when we hear DEI as a word, we think of, you know, Black Lives Matters or Initiative for Veterans, which applies to our Western counterparts. But really, what are some of the common threads that connect us on a DEI perspective in ASEAN? So I think that was a huge theme that came up for us as we were discussing to really understand what that concept means. For example, in Indonesia, there's a lack of awareness of why DEI is needed. Or there could be a few people who know it, but how do we continue to sort of share the good word and spread that around? That was kind of essential to the discussion, but there were other themes that came up during the discussion, which was around disability. I think it was Guzman and our team who brought up about the fact that 65% of about 65% or so of people in Asia are living with disabilities. So that's a huge percentage. And how do we talk about inclusivity and awareness on that perspective? We also touched on biodiversity, where we spoke about, you know, the focus is mainly on private companies and how do we get them to actively contribute in sustainable investment towards biodiversity initiatives and laws and digitalization on that aspect. Nisi also brought up the fact about gender inequality, again, the topic on persons with disabilities and race, another topic that was close to my heart because that was a topic that we did in my ALP project. So having these as the essential sort of topics that came up and themes, while we couldn't spend much time on the feasible actions, I think one thing that has come up was really awareness was emphasized, but really with a focus on discovery phase. So what do we mean by this? I think DEI, we all know what that means, but what does it mean as a collective for ASEAN? Again, there would be similarities and there would be differences, but I think there needs to be that collective body of work on discovering what that means for us and being able to articulate that effectively, right? I think that's something that has come up quite crucial in our discussions, and we definitely see that as a way forward for AHDO to take that on. And I've also put the second point as learning sessions and not workshops or training sessions, because I think DEI as a topic is about discovering what this means for us, but also facilitating the conversation. Again, one of the things that came up during the conversation was how do we involve, for example, youths to be more active in this space, right? And a lot of times this conversation can become sensitive and it can become challenging. And I think it's about providing the tools and framework for people involved to have these discussions. So that could be a focus for our learning sessions in terms of DEI. Long-term focus, we did touch on, perhaps using some of these learnings and awareness that we create to influence policy change, and also to involve students into green roles or roles that could be more on an advocacy path. Because I think one of the things we realize is a lot of the roles that are on ESG or any other green roles or any roles from I would say even DEI sector, even for myself, when we're looking for these roles, is often through hearing it from someone and not necessarily because it's kind of advertised or strongly posted out for. And I think it's also about talent pipelining and providing an alternative to LinkedIn, which I thought was an interesting idea that came up. I'm just going to pause at this point and ask for Yvonne and my team members to jump in to share if there's anything else that I've left out as part of my sharing.
Not at all, Shri, thank you for the comprehensive summary. So more like just to overemphasize again, there are two massive tailwind on the demand side. One is the world demands diversity. Guzman cited the BCG and McKinsey report that diversity equals innovation, innovation equals money. And then the second tailwind is 65% of people with disability in the world sits in Asia Pacific. So they are immense source of diversity, literally after female people with different abilities is the largest minority group that we can tap into with different talent. And there's a big shortage in what I call 2D. One is digital skills. Ridora mentioned ASEAN will be the 5th largest digital economy in the world, and we need lots of kids who can code. And second is we are going on this net zero journey. COP27 is happening in Egypt, COP15 in Montreal. So how can we align more ASEAN youth who are well-versed in digital and digitalization? They are not always separate. So that's the demand side. And on the supply side, it's really up to Ahdo and us how we can not just, yes, we talk about working with CEOs, the private sector, but I believe we can activate the public advocacy muscles to lobby the government, as well academia research, and then work on the people activism of moving the social stigma as well. So I hope just a further add. Thank you.
That's
right. Okay, thank you so much for the 5th team. And lastly, thank you so much everyone for contributing all your ideas, discussion, and suggestions. And as well, I hope all of you have learned a thing or two really importantly from this discussion as well. Okay, so with that said, we are going to move to the last segment. Eddie?
Yeah, so like what Mary mentioned, we are going to move to the last segment. And the last segment, we're going to invite Nadia. She's going to be the chair for representing Malaysia, going to be the chair for 2023. So Nadia, over to you.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so I'll do this quickly because I'm just mindful of time. So we have got about 7 minutes. Mel, you're going to put my slides, right? Okay, so I think we've heard a lot this morning about what is HD, or we call it Ahdo, and the opportunities that we have. What we want, I just want to sort of summarize and wrap it up. I think what's key out of today's session is that we do have a huge opportunity in bridging HD to the business in total. I've been in HR for a long time, and I can see after sitting in the certification program, there is a clear difference between just HR and HD. We are actually looking at working across the total demography of the society, and we're really talking about a holistic framework where we looked at issues coming from young talent to youth to corporate to entrepreneurs, latent talent, even retirees. How can this contribute to enriching the lives of people and allowing people or talent to have choices and empower them to be able to contribute in the choices that they've made. I think in the world today, we've really focused too much and narrowed down on capitalistic gain. And I think it's time to really balance up between what we want to do in enriching and raising the standards of living or standards of lives for people, and also the business side of it, because I think we cannot lose sight of business. Otherwise, there is an imbalance. I think one key thing is the opportunity that is clearly big for us is the youth development, because as you can see, the data, ASEAN is a huge base for a progressive economy, and also the workforce is growing at a very much faster rate than we have seen before, and huge hunger in terms of moving up the scale. We need to raise that awareness from not just the corporate world, but also from an educational platform, so that we can then shift the marketplace in terms of the thinking that is going on. So we spoke a lot about HD to, HR to HD. Can I go to the next slide, please? So I think I'm just going to show this as a sample of a normal life cycle of an employee. And this is just so focusing on corporate. Of course, in HD, we talk beyond corporate. So if you look at this, in a corporate world, there is the whole cycle of entry-level career development, and then you talk about career stability, and somewhere along the line, you know, that's probably where most of us or I am, and towards exit or retirement. What else can we do? What are the career transitions? Using the same life cycle, we're now seeing the change in the marketplace where there's this emergence of entrepreneurs, emergence of startups, techno startups, and the world is a very different world altogether. So how can we actually impact the world in a way that HD can support the choices that people are making and be able to allow them to prosper in the choices that they're making? Because I think in the past, when we talk about transactional process of human capital, is very much focused on, you know, one way where you come to work and you earn an income. But I think today we're talking about multi-levels and multi-platforms. I think this is where HD or Ahdo can play an important role. Can we move to the next one? Moving forward, we spoke a lot about HD. Moving forward, as Malaysia is taking over the chairmanship for next year from Vietnam, and unfortunately for Vietnam, I think for Phuc, it was the 2 years of pandemic. It was really challenging, I would say. We were doing a lot of things online. So these are some of the offerings that we have sort of brainstormed and say we want to offer. We kind of split it between corporates, HR professionals, higher education. And I'll tell you why we say HR professional, because you must be wondering, we just talked about not HR, but we're now focusing on HR professionals. And across the board in all the different countries in ASEAN, we have seen that these applies to everyone. So let's talk about corporations. We talk about how we need to bring corporations to think differently, think more holistically in terms of looking at human capital versus just for capitalistic gain. But we've seen how the UN SDG, how the ESG agenda has actually pushed corporations to think really broader, in broader terms. HR professionals, why we want to focus on them? It's because it starts from the HR in corporations, because I think HR leaders have a lot of influence in opening up that mindset. It starts from going into universities, right through to influencing leaders in the business, and also even in exiting employees. I believe that HR leaders has a lot of influence, and we want to make sure that we focus on the key stakeholder who can make a difference. So the first one, corporations, we want to focus on CEOs, HR professionals, and then of course within the HR professionals, we have the communities, which I don't want to underestimate the power of entrepreneurs and so on. So we're talking about a total ecosystem. And of course, the higher education, we've heard Dr. Wei-Lin speaking about it, and I think Pip was also talking about how do we ensure that these are preparing the next generation. Of course, when you look at the right side, I mean, there's a lot that we want to do. We want to be focusing on practical and tangible offerings, and ensure that it's contextual within what is happening currently in ASEAN. It's good news to see that we have Timor-Leste now being accepted in ASEAN, which means we have a whole range of different maturity in terms of marketplace, in terms of how human capital is being leveraged on. So we heard how we can leverage on ASEAN Secretariat. I think huge opportunity there. We want to make sure that the ASEAN connection can be fast forwarded, accelerated, and the power of cross-learning into a borderless world. And that's why I actually asked Rodoro just now and questioned on how can we accelerate that borderless world. I know it's very different from EU, but we want to ensure that we can somewhat break down the barriers, because with the barriers, we can't move forward. So very quickly, if you look at the one on the right side, we want to partner with HR leaders, partners with HR related organizations so that we can have curated programs. For Malaysia, for example, we want to work with Talent Corp, which eventually will be coming out with ASEAN internship program with the other entities in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in Singapore as well. Peckham is here. You know, she's basically an influential person also within the HR, with the biggest body, which is the civil servant in Singapore. And of course, we plan to do the normal thing, the Ahdo Regional Annual Conference, but we want to make sure that it's different from the other conferences because we talk about ethics, we talk about projects and so on. Certification program, which Bob will share a little bit more, and we also talked about master's degrees. Those are some of those things that we want to do. The HD series, just to make sure that in 2023, we continue to focus on bringing the awareness across the region before we even go beyond that. But huge amount of plans that we want to have regional ASEAN projects, which is anchoring on the ALP projects. I think that's something that we want to look at. So I'm going to pause here and pass it over to Bob so that he won't lose his time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. And well, as the founder, I guess it's up to me to sort of talk about the vision rather than all the different things that we've had. I'd like to address myself particularly to those, when we looked at the registrations, it was like 75% of the people had not gone through any of the ASEAN programs. So, we assume that HDO is new and that many of you that are here are starting to find out more. Maybe you heard about HDO, etc. So what do we see as moving into the future? And, we've already done quite a number of firsts that, we did. There was really nothing in terms of, if you look at human development globally, there's really nothing that has been done for people that are going to be practical. It's very policy oriented. It's very, we're going to invest in World Bank kind of things for targeted populations, but in the world of work, it's every day, right? And that is what takes up most of the time of adults in the world today, billions of people. So having practitioners in human development has been really something that I think we're starting to create an anchor on. The other thing that was really surprising that we encountered was there was no book ever written on careers for human development professionals. So that's one of the books that's on the document. But it's surprising if you think that there are all these people working in human development, but there's nothing on their careers. The other thing was certification. There was no certification of human development professionals in the world until we created the first one. And on the master's degree, there was no, and we asked because our partner was ASEAN University Network. In all those universities that are the top universities across the region, about 30 universities, is there any university that has a master's degree in human development? And they did this research and the answer was no. So we created that. So that's what I want to preface is we want to continue to be sort of pathfinders or leaders at the leading edge of what's going to be happening. And one of the things that I see in the top of the point in the slide is we are defining work as not just decent work, right, or fair work, which is very important, but we go beyond and say that work should be a development experience that is starting to go mainstream. If you take the largest consulting firm in the world, which is Accenture with over 700,000 consultants, they're talking about employee experience and net better off. I was talking with someone just yesterday from one of the largest providers of office space, and they're saying, this woman was saying, my job is to create the workplace experience. This experience obviously can't just be a question of satisfaction. It has to be a development experience. Very difficult to measure, but that's what people are looking for, and particularly in Southeast Asia. So that's the first thing. I think that we are starting to gain traction, but we need to define this and move forward on what does that mean to have work as a development experience for everyone. Second thing is we can see that the Southeast Asia region as a region with the economic growth, we have peace. We're very lucky in that sense because there's a war in Europe. There's the misalignment between China and the US, etc. So we're in a privileged position, which may not last forever, by the way, but we are becoming a world power. And a world power means that people are not just looking at us to be competitive, but to actually lead. And I think one of the interesting things going on right now is that the G7 has really put Indonesia on the map as a leader hosting this. And it's also been very important for ASEAN. So we want to be in that area of leading as a from a world power, rather than just taking what's been invented, particularly in the West, and saying, okay, we're only doing applications or we're only doing execution. The third one is capitalism is changing, and there's a lot of debate on this, but the people, planet, profit, just to give that kind of formula, is now not only for employees, it's not only for governments, it's not only for communities, it's also for investors. And investors are saying that if you do not, as a company, move in that direction towards this stakeholder capitalism, we will not give you money for loans, or we will not invest in the startup of companies. So it is becoming very, very important. And so there's all this pressure on companies to say, how do we do that? And particularly for the people side, which is the most difficult to measure. ASEAN institutions, as we saw, and thanks again to Rodora for giving us an overview, will mature beyond what I call virtue ethics, which is what are our national values, what are and to rules-based ethics, results-based ethics, what's actually works. We are at HDO really focused on the rules-based and the results-based. And another area of ethics is leadership ethics. Each of us in our leadership roles have ethical decisions to make. And so this, I think that's perhaps what HDO is representing as a power, is that we're representing people who have taken an ethical commitment to lead in making work a better experience and making ASEAN a better place for people at work, for all people. And finally, as a regional ecosystem, we are really identifying, because thanks to you coming to find out what we're doing and joining us and becoming part of a community, that we're creating a regional ecosystem of professionals, thought leaders, institutions that go across the traditional boundaries that we see. So I think that I remember hearing this from Peter Drucker a long time ago when I was a young consultant. He was an old consultant, and now I'm an old consultant his age. He was 77 when I talked to him about this. He said, if you want to know what the future will be, create it. Now, other people have said the same thing, but I think that really applies to what we can look towards in the future, is that we have a unique opportunity and a sort of a green field to create the future.
All right. Thank you so much, Bob and Nadia, for wrapping up the session with what the future of HDO is. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have somewhat come to the end of today's session. So what's happening next is that we're just going to wrap up everything today with a very quick Slido quiz. Again, this is the same link as just now. So we just want to know, out of everything, today has a lot of things. We have a lot of information sharing. We started the day with Fook and Bulo talking about the foundation of HDO. What is HD compared to HR and HC, and some of the things that HDO has done. Then we had a very interesting session with Rodora talking about the ASEAN with very good questions coming from the floor. And then we had a very fun and interesting breakout room session where all of you had your topics that you choose to learn and discover more and share your insights. Okay. And then after that, we came back with a quick summary, and then we had Nadia and Bob talk about the future of HDO. So with that said, this would be the last part of the Slido. So it'd be great that you let us know. And for everyone, please paste your LinkedIn link in the chat as well if you want people to keep in touch with you as you are keep connected, because we might be able to make great things. If you want to put your name as you're answering the key takeaway, you can do that as well. Okay, so you can paste your LinkedIn link in the chat, and then at least we can be friends here. Thank you. And then these are just some of the key things that we're just gonna let the participants type down. And some collaborations as well about starting a WhatsApp channel with DI. Okay. Looking for more webinars. Thank you. Renew enthusiasm. Thank you, Kelvin, and thank you, Alvin. So don't run away yet. Thank you, Eddie, for pasting your LinkedIn link. Don't run away just yet, because we have a quick feedback form as well for those of you who have done the Slido, so that we just want to know, because this is our first regional conference. So we also would like to know how can we do better, and what are some things that you are looking for when you want to know more from IHGO, or things that you want us to do more of, conference, webinar, talks, speakers you want us to invite. So do put in. I mean, it's a wish list, it's not a must list. So it would be good to know. Doesn't mean there's no promises. Yeah, it's good to know. Okay. And it's a Saturday morning as well. So thank you so much for committing your time. The feedback form is in the chat. For those of you who are done with the Slido, you can do the feedback form. And everyone is graciously pasting the link in the chat as well, so you can keep in touch with them if you like to learn more, and a lot of them are speakers as well. So I'm just going to give another 10 seconds for the Slido, if any, because of one person typing. Okay, and then I will put the feedback form up.
Okay, so another thing is we're going to add all of you to our mailing list, so that every time we have any webinars, we have any good information, we're going to keep you updated. And at the same time, I remember that I still remember the one of the question that came out is about cross-country collaboration. So keep a lookout to on our website. So every time when we have any collaboration, we will either go through the mailing list. At the same time, we also update on our website. So if you are interested, you can always drop an email to us, to Bob, to myself, to any of the people that you know that is from AHDO. We can always facilitate the connection for you. Or if you like to explore what are the potential cross-country collaboration and you have no idea at the moment, but you want to explore, you can always reach out to us. So we are a community that we want to speak to each other, we want to connect, we want to explore potential with one another. Okay?
Yeah. And with that, some good news will be the professional certification in HD, where most of us actually met one another. All right, is for cohort 5, is starting on 14 January 2023. So which is very soon. So if you want to be part of that certification program, you can of course talk to Bob. Bob's email is there. Okay. And sharing from personal experience, I think all of us here actually learn pretty much a lot of things, not just about HD specifically, but the actual learning projects that we've come up with, cross-country learning about what HD is, and more importantly, the network, the connections that we have built from this session as well. Okay, so I think quite a number of them are in this program as well. So if you are interested to join the professional certification in HD, you can contact Bob. The recording of the conference will be posted on the website. I know some of you asked for the slides as well. We will be sending it to you after the session. Okay, or not, you can just drop an email and we'll send it to you as well. Again, this is our first regional summit. So please do let us know how did we do in terms of the feedback form. The QR code is there. The link is in the chat. It's only taking you 30 seconds to a minute. And then everybody has been pasting their LinkedIn link as well. You can connect with everybody in the conference here via LinkedIn if you want to know more. Okay, so I think with that, we can end our session today. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in the session, our first AHDO Regional Summit. And we look forward to see all of you someday, somewhere in the world. Okay, so have a great Saturday and a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay in touch. Don't take care.
Thank you,
and be
Mallory
safe.
and Eddie. Yeah, thank you all.